Hi, my name is Butler. I'm the sales manager at Simpleray. We're a renewable energy company based out of the Midwest. Today we're going to be covering how to compare different proposals from various companies. You can reach us at hello@simpleray.com. You can give us a call, 1-800-8080-SUN. Visit us online at simpleray.com. We have a great resource center, so even if we aren't working in your area or you're not going to get a proposal from us, which would be just crazy, we do have some educational resources for you. So please go and check those out. We look forward to answering any and all questions that you might have for us here. Do you want to put up a quick disclaimer? As fun and interesting as we think solar is, today will be a little bit more tedious, and we are going to have a few different proposals and a few different numbers floating around. Just know that all the proposals we're talking about are hypothetical, or they're not all going to match up every single kilowatt hour all the way through. We do have a few different options floating in and out there, and hopefully I'll do my best to explain it. But if anything is not quite clicking, just go ahead and ask a question. We'll answer it as soon as we can. So what are we going to cover today? So much good stuff on the agenda. First thing is details matter. And this is going to be the overriding theme for almost everything I have to say today. You really got to pay attention to the details, or more precisely, the company that you choose to work with should be paying attention to all of these details. So the first detail, what are your goals as a customer? Secondly, need some details about the company itself. Need to know some details about the equipment that's going to get used. And finally, and maybe most importantly, you need to know some details about how the engineering is going to be done on your project. I think these things combined really will help you separate out different companies or different proposals. It should give you a path to have some questions that you can ask throughout the process that you're going to go through when you're thinking about whether or not solar is a good fit for you. So the first one, what are your goals? What are your goals for the project? And the details are going to matter a lot here. So are you worried about the financial payback? Are you doing this so for future generations, so they don't have a utility bill or a very small utility bill? Are you doing this to help the environment? The answer is most likely some combination of the three, and how you prioritize these and which one's the most important to you can dictate what your project will end up looking like. So are you looking for the payback to be as quick as possible? Are you looking for your savings over 25 years to be as high as possible? Or is this simply an insurance policy against the utility company raising its rates in the future? We recently had a farmer who decided to go with a larger system, had a slightly worse payback, but he didn't want the future owners of his farm, which were in his family, to ever have to worry about a utility bill. He'd been jerked around by the utility company for a long, long time. So how you answer these questions can impact how we design the system. So there's no right or wrong system. There is the best fit for you. So whoever you're working with, make sure you go into it with, think about it as a consultative process. We're just trying to help accomplish your goals, and we're providing advice along the way of whether or not your goal is obtainable and to what extent we should be chasing it. The next thing, all about the details again, is you should learn about the company. The solar industry is relatively young. Most companies may only have been around a couple of years. Simpleray has been around for 10. But you should definitely ask how long that company's been around for. You don't want to have a company install the project this year. You need something a year from now, and that company is nowhere to be found. So are they bonded and insured? How long have they been in business? Are they members of the various trade organizations within the industry? Do they have certifications? Are the engineers certified? And are they licensed to work in your state? There's a lot of companies, particularly out of California, they're done working in that particular state for a particular time, right, until the policy changes again. So how committed is that company to working in the region or the state that you're in is another consideration. And is it all that the company does? We sometimes go up against proposals from the local electrician who is a great electrician, but they don't deal in solar every single day. And so maybe they don't know which module manufacturer is going to go out of business, or they don't know what the latest and greatest inverter technology is. And so it's always worth finding somebody who has expertise in the area, and it's something that they focus on. This is probably the most important question I would ask if I were buying an array, knowing what I know now, and that's who is engineering your system? So here at Simpleray, we have a whole lot of NAPSAP certified engineers, and they're the ones out designing the systems with the help of the sales team as an interface. A lot of companies will do one of two things. The first option is they'll have a sales guy. They'll give him some software like Helioscope or another industry accepted software. They'll give him a little bit of training, and they'll say, okay, go out, talk to as many people as you can, give as many proposals as you can. Yeah, we may not get everything exactly right, but we'll sell the system and we'll figure out everything else at a later point in time. That's one option. The other option is you have some great engineers out there, but they have their way of engineering it and they think that they have their solution, or they're not always great at being customer facing and sitting down and talking with people about what exactly it is that they would like to see happen with their system. So we've merged the two of these things together. So all of our reps, when they're on site, they can pick up the phone anytime. They can call our engineers back in the office and talk them through the project. And so what seems like a really small change of moving the array 50 feet in one direction might actually be a much bigger deal to the engineer than what the sales guy realizes at first. So having certified engineers who are designing your system, who are in-house, closes that feedback loop down really quickly and helps ensure you're going to get what you need. We work with a couple of different, or a lot of our competitors in Iowa throughout the Midwest. They'll actually sub out the engineering. So you will ask for a proposal, they'll gather the information, they'll send it to an engineering firm. Engineering firm will take 1 to 3 weeks to do the engineering, they'll send it back. Sales guys will propose it to you. Something needs to get changed, they're going to go back. It's going to be another 1 to 3 weeks. We try to do everything in real time or with a couple-day turnaround whenever possible. So depending on the size and complexity of the system, it can really make a difference on who you have engineering that system at the end of the day. So the engineering team, I asked them, I was like, hey, engineering guys, I know we never let you leave the office. What would you like to tell me? What would you like for me to tell the kind folks out there in the world about why you guys are so great, or what should they be looking for on proposals? And they gave me a whole list of stuff. Here's some of the stuff that rose to the top in my mind. Whoever's engineering your system, they should be using the local weather data. And if they are using from the small municipal airport down the road, has that data been verified and checked to be a complete data set? Oftentimes, these weather stations come and go on and offline, and so there might be information missing. So is there a good weather data set? Has the person who's engineering accounted for the location of the project? Have they modeled shading issues? Have they accounted for the direction and tilt of the array? Have they accounted for system degradation? Has a project been designed to code with proper keepouts and setbacks? Has the system been designed keeping the specific utility company's policy in mind to maximize the return on investment or other project parameters? Have they accounted for any upgrades that the utility company is likely to ask for? Have they made the correct decisions on the equipment? So you can imagine different sizes wire, inverters, modules. As the project changes, the answers to what the best solution is can also change. And it basically comes down to, at the end of the day, what is their overall design philosophy? At Simpleray, we take the approach that the details matter a great deal. And we're trying to maximize that long-term value and get that payback as low as we can, because we deal with a lot of commercial and small-scale utility projects. So where is that sweet spot between, quality versus skimping out versus spending too much money on the array? So we want a robust system that's going to last a long time, that's going to be as durable as possible, especially when we're working in the ag sector on a hog confinement. That can be a relatively tough environment with various metals and components. And so every system we design, we're thinking it's going to be out there for the next 25 to 40 years. So think about what you need your system to do. And, this thing's going to be sitting outside in the weather day in and day out for the next 10, 20, 30. Engineering team was okay with me highlighting. If you have other questions about what else they're looking at, I would love to put them on the phone and let them nerd out as much as possible. So we're going to look at a couple of proposals or variations on proposals here. This is a system I sold recently. It's a 198.9 kW system, 510 modules. Customer's going to save $14,000 a year. Their current annual usage is just under 241,000 kilowatt hours. The system's going to produce just over 261,000 kilowatt hours, and it's going to offset 108% of their bill. And it turns out all these things work together, and in this case, we feel like we came up with a really good solution to accomplish our customers' needs. We're going to unpack that here in a second. So one of the questions we get asked is, does the number of modules matter? Or it's a corollary of this question. Your proposal, Lewis, has 510 modules and it's, say, $350,000. But company Y over here, they have 600 modules and they're $10,000 cheaper. I'm getting 90 more modules for less money. Clearly, that's a much better deal. And the answer is that's not always necessarily the case. The thing that we want to focus on here is we want to focus on that production, right? What is that system actually going to produce over that year, 10 years, 15 years? What does that production actually look like? So if you want to figure out what type of modules a company is using, you can simply look at the system size. So 198,900 watts. There's 510 panels. It means each panel is rated at 390 watts. So you can find a wide variety of panels. Some will be higher, some will be lower. Some are higher in quality, some are lower in quality. So almost every single thing that we're going to install is going to have a 25-year warranty, or we're going to buy up the warranty for as long as we can, so 20 years in the case of the inverters. We're also going to come out and make sure that everything is working correctly for the first 2, and we're going to warranty the workmanship for the first 5 years of that system. The whole idea when we're talking about this design philosophy is make sure everything's going to work, is taken care of by these warranties, and we mitigate as much risk as we possibly can. So on the module side, you want to use tier 1 manufactured modules. They're manufactured to a very high specification. They're the best modules that you can get. You also want to be looking at the Bloomberg financials and see how bankable these companies are. How financially viable are they, and how long are they going to be around for? There's a lot of companies out there. They get into the solar module business. They're going out of business a year later. You can buy their modules really cheaply on the market right now, but the warranty isn't worth anything. And if you need to get a replacement or you need to call up the manufacturer, there's going to be no one to call. So these best price point with the best warranty, with the most bankable company, whenever you can. So our modules have usually 80 or 85% module production guarantees in year 25 there. So it's not about necessarily the number of modules. It's about the cost of that system and how many kilowatt hours you're going to produce. We advocate going slightly higher on the module spec category, the 390 versus, say, a 350, because the more production you get out of every panel, that means the less panels you're going to need, which means the less racking you're going to need, which means the less labor you're going to need, which means also the less space that you're going to take up. And so if we can combine all those things in and have it work out from a financial point of view of savings long term for the system, we would like to make the array as small as possible and install it as efficiently as possible whenever possible. So we think paying a little bit more for a little bit higher wattage module is definitely worthwhile, and that's a conversation your solar company should be happy to have with you about why they picked a particular module and why it suits your needs. And that goes for the inverters and the racking and everything else and every other component of that system. There should be a reason for every nut and bolt in that system. The modules are just one that we talk about most frequently. So key point for us, we think better quality equipment is going to give you better savings, and it's going to provide more value to you in the long run. So here's a tracking array solution we're really happy with, Array Technologies. They're on their 3rd or 4th generation. That's going to last for a really, really long time. So we are really happy with some of our partners, and we love to highlight them when we can. The next engineering consideration that people often ask us about is the offset and production numbers. So here you'll see that the customer's current usage is 241,000 kilowatt hours. Our system is going to produce 261,000 kilowatt hours, and it's going to offset 108% of their electric bill. This particular customer has some cattle barns and a feedlot. He's going to be adding another building and some more fans to his setup here pretty soon. And so he wanted to future-proof his system while taking advantage of the current 3% federal tax credit and the adjustable block program in the state of Illinois. So we know the utility company policy, we know the state policy, we know the federal incentives. And so we worked with the engineering team to design a solution that maximized the payback from our racking solution and inverter and module setup. So we engineered it to a price point where everything penciled out really nicely and is a natural cutoff for the system. So we're going to be able to give him some future capacity there as well. So this was a really nice tailored solution for this customer in this case. Other utility companies, we're going to have to be at under 100% because of their net metering policy or their size requirement. So you're not always going to get to 100. You're not always limited by 100, but it is a combination of some policy factors there. So the thing that will allow you to compare various systems is you should look at this production multiplier. You could have 5 proposals from 5 companies all insisting that they're going to install 198.9 kW system. They're all going to use the same modules, the same inverters, the same warranties, the same everything. But the production might vary between all of those proposals. And the only reason it's going to vary is because of the engineering and calibration that takes place on the back end. So this particular system is a ground-mounted fixed tilt system facing south. It's going to produce that 261,000 kilowatt hours, and that gives it a production multiplier of 1.314. If we took this same system and put it inside of a barn that had no daylight, that system would have a production multiplier of 0, right? Because it's not going to produce anything without any sunlight. If we put it facing north, that production multiplier would be somewhere between 0 and 1.314. So this production multiplier tells you how much energy you're going to produce given a wide variety of factors. Those are going to include the direction it's facing, the angle that it's tilted, the soiling for the area, your local weather patterns, the snow load, how often is it going to snow in your area. That goes back to that data set. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this production multiplier. So you should always be able to ask, how did you come up with this production multiplier? This is probably one of the single most important numbers you can look at when you're out comparing systems. It's great to compare the number of modules. It's great to compare the size. What we really care about at the end of the day is how much is the system likely to produce given everything that we know. So we talked about those sales guys going out there and shotgunning proposals. Here's an example of what a shotgun proposal would look like. This industrial customer says, we can fill up my roof in these couple of buildings. I want to offset as much as my usage as I can. What can you do? You can go real quick and you can throw some panels on top of, or some modules on top of this building. And if you're maxing out the south-facing roof space here in this east and west on this other building, you can get a 1.1 megawatt array on this building. It's going to produce 2.1 million kilowatt hours annually. If you're not looking closely, it's easy to miss a couple of things. So you'll notice the modules, which are blue, go up right to the edge of the roof line. That means there's no setback as required by local code. There's also AC units which have been covered on this particular setup that you can't see through the modules. You need to include a keep out and some setbacks around your AC units on the roof here. If you don't, you're not going to be able to service your equipment. Also, you may not know this because you can't see it, but this is using the default parameters inside of the modeling software, in this case, Helioscope. It hasn't been adjusted for the project's location. Maybe it thinks it's in Florida, for example, and it hasn't taken into account snow load, the angle at which all the panels are going to be. It's just a very rough guess, and it's by the default setup out of the box. The multiplier here is going to be 1.921. This is an extremely optimistic multiplier, but unless you dig into how all those parameters are arrived at, you wouldn't know any different. So in this case, this would vastly overestimate production, probably by a pretty high percentage, which means you're going to overestimate savings. And because you haven't done the design work for all the keep outs and setbacks, your estimates on how much racking you're going to use and how much wiring you're going to use and how many modules you're going to be able to buy in bulk is also not going to be accurate, which means the pricing isn't going to be accurate. So you might get a price today, sign a contract, and it's going to get changed ordered 1, 2, 3, 4 times down the road as this project actually starts to get built. So this all goes back to details and philosophy. One of our goals is to have the project very dialed in from day one, so everything that flows from that is a lot more accurate, so there's no surprises on the back end. So we asked the engineering team, said, hey, go back, design this with the cutouts and the keep outs and the setbacks there. And so they went back and they accounted for all the equipment on the roof. They accounted for the local codes. And so we went from a 1.1 megawatt array to just under 700 kW array. So we went down a pretty substantial size. So we did that, but we not accurately model this particular setup here. So what they did is they modeled just the roof that has the slope to it. They did not accurately model the flat buildings or what appear to be flat buildings in this scenario. So we have the correct design, but we don't have the correct 3D model. And so when you look at these top-down photos or depictions of what the array is going to look like, you don't know what the 3D implications are. Have they modeled for trees? Have they modeled the AC units out? There's a lot of questions that are still hiding in there. But using this and the default parameters, we get to a multiplier of 1.298. So even though this isn't perfectly designed, it's closer or a lot closer than the first example we looked at. This also allows for more accurate pricing of the components, but we're still going to overestimate production and we're still going to overestimate savings. So this would be a quickly, hastily 3D mock-up of just one surface. So it's modeled incorrectly and the shading analysis won't be accurate. This is a more complete picture of what our final solution ended up looking like. We modeled some obstructions on the building, which maybe during certain parts of the year are going to catch some sunlight and limit production. We correctly modeled this slight east and west sloping roof on the building towards the bottom of the screen. And those flat sections of building we've also correctly modeled. So we've modeled it, setbacks and keep outs. And when we do that, we're going to go from 909,000 kilowatt hours per year, 877,000 kilowatt hours per year. So exact same equipment, exact same layout, but by modeling it correctly and setting the parameters inside of the modeling software appropriately, that multiplier is going to go down to 1.254. So just a little bit of a dip there, but you're losing about 30,000 kilowatt hours. And in our opinion, when you're running these financial models, you have a whole bunch of assumptions built into them. We want those to be as accurate as we possibly can get. So we've taken some time and care to get to this point, because as you can imagine, this version of the model is a lot less work than that version of the model. So it's important to take a couple of extra minutes to try to get that right. As we can see, here are three potential various proposals with all different amounts of savings. So the first system would project to save $166,000 roughly. The second one, just over $70,000, and the last one, just over $68,000. And so, in percentage terms, we're talking a 2 to 4% difference in the savings year after year of that system, which, we would like to be as accurate as we can. So if you are out there getting a proposal, you should ask who's doing the engineering, how did they get those parameters, have they modeled it in 3D, and have they done a shading analysis? And if they can't answer those questions, then you should keep pressing on them until they have a satisfactory answer. In some cases, it might be relatively straightforward. In this case, they had a south-facing building, an east-west-facing building, and there's a few more complications to this one as well, based upon some of the buildings, there being a gap between them and keeping things up to code. So a lot can change just by spending an extra 5, 10 minutes or even up a couple hours on some of these projects from the engineering team. So when we think about that system being out there a long time, it's definitely worth taking the time to make sure that these things are going to be accurate. The next piece of this is you want to make sure you have an accurate understanding of all the incentives that you're looking at. So we're always going to advise people to talk to their CPA. Make sure they understand the federal tax credit, investment tax credit. It's currently 30%, set to go down at the end of 2019 here, going into 2020. If you're in Illinois, you need to understand the adjustable block program, what utility company you're on, how big is your project. If you're in Wisconsin, they have a competitive procurement process for the SRACs. If you're in Iowa, it's a state tax credit. If you're in Missouri, if you're on Ameren or KCP&L, they're going to have different incentive programs and their timing and how they're going to allocate money. So whatever state you're in, it's important to have a good handle on what those financial incentives are, how the monthly net metering policies might work. It's going to impact that payback number, and then depreciation. So anyone who's showing you financials should be happy to walk you through how they arrived at those numbers, and then consult with your CPA to make sure that those are accurate and they're going to work for you. Never take all of your financial advice from your solar guy. Want to involve a CPA or dig through the numbers yourself as much as possible. So to recap, we think the details matter a lot. The details on the equipment matter. The details on the warranties matter. The details from the engineering team matters. The details on the financial incentives that you're available for. Are you eligible for another rebate program like your REAP grant? There's reasons to propose and to pitch all of these different rebates, and there's reasons not to do these things. And so it's worth going through all of your options or working with a company that's willing to talk through all of your options for you. So we think that array is going to be around for a long time. We think it's going to save you money for a long time. We think it's going to help the environment for a long time. We just want to make sure that we are doing the best solution that we possibly can, given all of our constraints. So if you're thinking about solar, 2019 is a great year to get a proposal and look at it. The federal tax credit's going to drop going into 2020. It's going to continue to drop over the next couple of years. So if you want to maximize those financial incentives, you're already paying taxes, you're already paying your utility bill, you might as well be getting some of that money back sooner rather than later. I think 2019 and 2020 are great years to do that. The next step, if you're interested, is get a proposal from your local solar company. So if you happen to want us to come out and take a look at your project, if it's big enough, we're happy to consult and at the very least do some engineering and procurement for you. We'd love to install it as well. But give us a call. We'll get you connected with a local consultant who understands your utility company and their policies, and we'll get you set up and start talking down what those numbers look like and how much money you can save. You know, sometimes it works out, other times it doesn't, but it's always worth having that conversation and seeing where it leads, and maybe something changes in the future that will cause you to reconsider. So thanks so much for your attention. I speak for the whole team. We're really glad that you stuck with us towards the end here. Check us out online, Simpleray.com. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. We got some great photos on Instagram. We got a lot of webinars piling up there on YouTube. If you want to know anything about solar, please use us as a resource. Pick up the phone, give us a call. We'd love to talk with you. This is Lewis Butler, Simpleray. Have a great day.